my wife, Heidi Rare, had long COVID for 13 months and took her own life May 22nd this year. She was declared legally dead May 26th. And then about 3 weeks later, I sent her obituary into a Hollywood trade publication because she worked as a screenwriter. And I was very surprised when the obituary went viral within an hour around the world. And because of that, I started getting contacted by many media outlets about what happened to her. And so for the last 3 months, I've been dedicating myself to spreading awareness for people who are suffering with long COVID and specifically the mental health aspects of it. As I often say, she was my best friend. A friend of hers described her as sunshine in a dress, which is pretty accurate. She was somebody that people gravitated towards just with her personality. She was extremely outgoing. She was very selfless. She was a very talented screenwriter who had a 10-year career in Hollywood, which is not easy to do. Just a very dynamic person, just extremely dynamic. And I miss her a lot. Started to show symptoms in April of 2020. She got the COVID toes. And I think at the time she had some GI issues that made her think I may have COVID. A neurologist, Cedars-Sinai, they did nerve conduction tests and they said she had small fiber neuropathy. She could barely walk. She could walk, maybe 5 minutes at a time. She often had to put her feet on a pillow when she was sitting on the floor. She couldn't put her feet on the ground because it hurt too much. Leaving the house, for the first 6 hours of the day or so was really a crapshoot. I mean, it was just, she kind of felt like I can't leave the house because I don't know if I'm gonna have to go to the bathroom. I mean, she, I always say she hate me talking about that, but I do talk about it because that's a quality of life issue too. She started to get exhaustion to the point where walking up and down stairs would be so tiring. She would need me to carry glasses of water up our staircase because that would make her so tired. Her heart rate would race from 80 to 130 beats a minute just by getting out of bed. I mean, she was pretty convinced she had POTS and tachycardia. The brain fog definitely became part of it too. She had a lot of problems concentrating. She had vision disturbances. She decided to get the Moderna vaccine. We were able to get it March 8th, and then by 2 weeks later, probably, we started to develop the tremors. First, they were small in her hands, and then they got bigger and bigger and bigger in her shoulders, upper torso. And then the internal vibrations started at night when she would lie down around 10:30. It would start. She could feel it. It was fizzing in her body, she described it as, and it was so distracting she couldn't sleep. Even with prescription sleeping pills, she could only sleep for an hour at a time. That went on for 3 or 4 weeks. And that's really when things turned, when she became very despondent, very disconnected. I feel like my life has become so small. It's just in this bedroom. I can't even read on my Kindle and retain a book anymore because she couldn't. I think she started to feel like she was only going to get worse, that the tremors were getting stronger. They were getting to the point where once when she walked upstairs holding a glass, I was walking behind her, her hand started to shake. I grabbed the glass from her, walked upstairs ahead of her, put it on the counter in the bathroom, came back, and she reached the top of the stairs and fell into my arms, and her body was just shaking all over. And I think she felt like it was like Parkinsonian almost. It didn't help. She was being gaslit by her doctors. I think she started to feel there was only one way out. I think that the number one issue people need to look out for is trouble sleeping. Trouble sleeping is the trigger for everything unraveling. It was very much in her life, because when you can't sleep, you can't heal, and your brain doesn't get a break from processing imagery. It's really important that people find ways to get sleep. And, we are now talking, some of the work I do with Survivor Corps, we're talking with some very top anesthesiologists at Mayo Clinic about creating protocols for sleep, where patients will be able to go to their doctors and say, I'm having these vibrations, they're affecting my sleep. I need something stronger. I need something stronger. And that something might even be being checked into a hospital and being sedated for 3 to 5 days, put under a medically supervised sedation where you're really put out. And I think people need to now, who are having those sleep issues, they need to know that they have the right to go to their doctors and talk about this. And if they need backup on that, they can absolutely reach out to Survivor Corps about that. And we will provide doctors who will talk to their doctors, email their doctors, give them the kind of permission that they need, you know, because it's a touchy issue, but it's really important that people know they can sleep if they have to. People need to look out for the feelings of emotional disconnection. They really do. That is a very, very serious sign. I would say if your loved one is saying things like, you'll be better off without me, I'm such a burden, take that seriously. Take that seriously. And I can't be specific enough to anybody out there who's having those thoughts. You're not a burden. You're anything but a burden. The burden comes when somebody's taken their own life. That's when the burden starts, because that's the burden that goes on for the rest of your loved ones' lives. As I often say, my son and I, our lives now have a demarcation point in it. And that's the day before this happened, and then the day it happened. And we sort of mark our lives now by that. I can't be specific enough with anybody out there who's struggling. There are so many doctors now who are spending a lot of time on this. They are absolutely paying attention now. They're absolutely paying attention. And you don't want to be that person who gives up too quickly, and then a few weeks later something becomes available that would give you the relief you need. I know it's hard. I know how hard it is. I've watched it firsthand. But your suicide is an atomic bomb that goes off in a family. It's the best way I can describe it. It creates a blast zone and shrapnel. People need to understand that, like, there are moments when you feel hopeless, but that does not mean there's no hope. If you're concerned that your loved one is feeling suicidal, ask to see their search history on their browser. Ask to look at their search history on their browser. If they get really touchy about that, you need to start reaching out to people. As I found out, Heidi's search history on her browser had been scrubbed for 3 weeks before she took her life. 3 weeks. There was nothing. So she had been thinking about it for at least that long. So if you're really worried, ask them if they can just say, do you mind if I look at your browser? I'm not looking for anything, like, I'm just concerned. And if they say no, then just say, would you mind in front of me opening your browser and typing in the word suicide? What people need to understand now is, because of Heidi's well-publicized death, they now have ammunition to take to their doctors and say, I am having thoughts that are self-destructive. And this is a woman who is in the same situation I was in. Print up an article about her, show it to your doctor. They're not going to ignore you if you do that, because guess what? You've created medical liability for them. They're not going to ignore you. You bring in an article about her and say, read this about her. These are the symptoms very similar to mine. This is how I'm feeling. I need help. I need help with sleep. I need help with pain management. I'm asking you directly to do that. And if they refuse, say, okay, I need to find another doctor. She was in excruciating physical pain every day. At the end, her neuropathy was so bad in her feet, it said she said she felt like her feet were being stung by bees all day long. And she couldn't sleep. And she was having tremors. She needed relief. I really just want people watching this to understand that it's totally normal at this point to feel hopeless based on the symptoms that they're having. But there will be ways of getting them the medical attention they need to get relief. It's going to take a little bit of pressure with their doctors, but it's achievable. Hang on. I cannot express to you, if you think suicide is the way out, you are leaving people behind who will never be the same. They will never be the same. I will never be the same. My son will never be the same.